As I sit here getting ready to put together this episode of the show, a couple of questions immediately come to mind. One, am I a traitor? 30 years, nearly 3 decades in radio broadcasting. As we get ready to talk about video solutions, am I a traitor to the radio industry? Well, I think not. Another question is, I've long said that video is king. Is it still king? Is video more on top of the mountain than it's ever been? You look at what's been going on over the past year and a half, 18 months or so. A lot of remote work going on, hybrid work, meetings, video conferencing, even on the healthcare side of things. Of course, telemedicine has really grown over the past couple of years as well. All have risen dramatically. How and why, what's next are some of the questions that come to mind when you think about the video industry. We're back in the saddle here at the TBBT studios. Bill Culhane behind the microphone. Rick Jennings is, of course, leading the way, making sure that all runs smoothly. Hope that you and yours had a very safe, a very happy July 4th holiday. In a moment, we're going to visit with an expert on the rise of video conferencing. Before we head there, in our last episode, most recent episode, you may recall that we discussed U.S. infrastructure with Dr. Joe Schofer from Northwestern University over in Evanston, Illinois. It looks like, fingers crossed, there might be an agreement on infrastructure. It looks like it's getting closer. Hold on to your hats. If you're a vendor, if you're a contractor, you certainly want to be ready. Back to video, though, as we get ready for this episode. Will Purcell from Pepperland Marketing is our special guest. He's going to join us shortly. Before that, we have a few housekeeping items to take care of. And my thoughts, government entities across the land, and we're talking everything from state to local to federal, you name it, similar to their private sector counterparts. You see all of these agencies, all of these businesses leveraging video. Why are they doing it? Of course, a lot of this, particularly when you talk about the pandemic, a lot of this seems pretty straightforward. The federal government is spending billions of dollars each year on travel. So, much like, again, the private sector side of things, video is helping government entities shrink travel expenses. Video helps agencies communicate with the citizenry, no matter where the constituent is, no matter where they live, where they work, where they play, or where you are. You folks listening to this podcast, well, you can conduct your business and communicate with people via video. It doesn't have to be that face-to-face interaction. And along those lines, think about access to government meetings. Well, video has helped agencies provide open access to meetings being held, and often that's required by law that people be able to see and hear from their leadership. On this show, our longtime listeners know we've talked about transparency in government forever. You go back over the 7 years of the show, and it's been a frequent topic that we've at least touched upon as we moved along through specific episodes. Not unlike businesses, government types use video to conduct training. We use it here. It's a great way for agencies to reach many people who aren't located in the same place, of course, right? And that doesn't just apply to citizens, of course. It applies to staff as well. One thing I think we've all noticed over the past 18 months, plus or minus, is how video technology is being used in the public safety setting. You, I'm sure are aware many proceedings are being done by courts. Well, they're being handled by video. I'm sure Will is going to touch on some of these, but I just thought I'd kind of go through my list, my checklist, and I'm sure Will's going to talk about other solutions in our upcoming conversation as well. So there you go, Rick. A look at what our friends in government have been up to. I said it, many businesses are and have been for some time. Rick, I know you've long been an advocate for the use of video.
I have been. Actually, me and my team in the client services department here at BidPrime, video is kind of a critical part of our workflow now, as our job is, of course, to assist our clients in helping them understand our portal and everything that they'd be able to take advantage of. And it's just kind of difficult to do that without a visual representation. So we've been, of course, utilizing video conferences for our demos. We've been utilizing a software called Vidyard in order to make narrated videos and with a on-screen walkthrough of helping them answer a question that they might have, which has seemed to be received very well. And even over the past couple of years, us as BidPrime as a greater team have been increasing the number of webinars that we've conducted, and we've gotten a lot of really great feedback just over the ability to be able to see what's going on, and adding that visual element to our conferences has just helped something, especially in this case where you need a visual representation. It's just been such a wonderful resource to use over here.
I know I'm biased, but certainly an interesting case study there. I know you've researched and thought long and hard about the crazy bids for this episode. What's planned for the crazy bids you can win?
This one just seemed like such a fun opportunity to be a part of, and it kind of speaks to, I guess, my interests in audio and visual kind of things. And it just seems like even if it's not part of your particular scope of work, this would be something really fun to keep your eye on and even see an outcome for. So stay tuned.
I speak for everyone, Rick. I say with confidence, can't wait to hear crazy bids. Again, that will come a little bit later in the episode. After this quick message, Will Purcell from Pepperland Marketing drops by to take an even deeper dive into how businesses and others can put video to use and what's ahead for the industry.
The Big Bid Theory is brought to you in part by BidPrime. Over 11 years in changing the bid services industry, BidPrime has become the solution for businesses serious about winning public sector business. From the premier technology in the industry to real-time bid notifications, supporting documents, and robust data tools, it's all backed by unmatched personalized customer support. BidPrime. Start your free zero-obligation trial today. BidPrime.com.
Thanks for your patience as we played that message. Will Purcell is a marketing specialist at Pepperland Marketing based out of Cheshire, Connecticut. That's right, up there in Connecticut. Will is a veteran of the worlds of journalism and broadcasting and contributes to the inbound and content efforts over at Pepperland. During our visit, Will is going to tell us all a little bit more about Pepperland. But here's my visit with Will Purcell.
Will Purcell does indeed join us here on the Big Bid Theory hotline. Will, on behalf of our listeners, we appreciate you joining us.
Bill, thanks so much. It's great to be here and glad to be able to talk about a few things here with video conferencing.
Yeah, I know everybody's excited to hear what you have to say. But before we do talk about all things video conferencing, we have a map here at the show, the Big Bid Theory, and we have pins on the states where it kind of indicates where our guests are from. And I just want to let you know that you are the very first ever guest on the Big Bid Theory who is from Connecticut. How does that sound?
Well, it's I'm from Connecticut as far as as Pepperland Marketing, and I'm a little bit. You mentioned it with the pins. It's a little funny because I'm kind of back and forth all over the place. Because I was born and raised in West Tennessee, but I've lived in Mississippi, Indiana, Kansas City, Missouri, and now Connecticut. So it's a little bit of a confusing thing when people ask, where are you from? But yeah, we're up in Connecticut with Pepperland Marketing. I've been up here for a few years now, and the Northeast is good. I was told that it would be a lot cooler up here in the summer, and lately, Bill, I don't know how it is for you guys. Well, I'm sure in Texas it's incredibly hot. But up here in the Northeast, it's been a heat wave lately, so it's not been great as far as the weather's concerned. But yeah, up here in Connecticut, over in Cheshire near New Haven.
Once upon a time, I lived in the Northeast, and whoever told you it was cool in the Northeast during the summer, they told you a joke. But
yeah.
But anyway, let's jump right into video conferencing, and you already know this, and some of our listeners may be aware, one of our researchers found an interesting piece, and it's full of interesting statistics and info. Back in September, you authored 20 video conferencing stats, what it means for your business. And listeners take note, there's a link to the report in the description of the podcast. So, Will, you and I both know all the jokes about stats, but you raised some interesting points that you support with the numbers you put together. What are some of the things you discovered while crafting your report on video conferencing?
Sure. So it was a really insightful report at the time because with the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people obviously working from home. So we kind of got together remotely with our team and said, what do we want to talk about? What can we do to provide some insights into not only what's happening, but is this going to stick around? And I think that was one of the big key factors. That's everybody's using Zoom now. Everybody's using some form of video conferencing. But I mean, how long is this here really to stay? And the biggest insight that I found was that not only is this, at least from the numbers that we gathered and seeing the resulting stats and updates and whatnot, not only is it here to stay, but it's probably going to become the standard for a lot of different companies. And I think that's what we started to see. And I guess it's kind of, you're kind of looking down the scope here as far as what's going to be the next step for companies. And a lot of them have adopted this work from home. What I didn't know, and what was something that was certainly insightful to me, was that this had been building a number of years before the COVID-19, before the 2020, when this really just kind of exploded onto the scene and everybody started using. I mean, from 2015 to 2018, live video chat usage with businesses and brands, I mean, that grew by 233%. And that's one of the first stats we talk about in the article, but this has been building for a long time. And I think that once COVID-19 hit and people started working from home, it not only became something that was a necessity, but for a lot of people, Bill, it started to become a preference. And I think that's the big key difference here. And as we look forward to what this means long term, I think that's something to certainly keep into account.
In the intro to the episode, and I know you weren't on board as I did the entree to this episode, and I've said it for years, it's something that I read years ago and it's stuck in my brain, but the line is video is king. And so we've been talking about video conferencing, your report. And again, I ask everybody to go look at that report that Will and his team put together. But video conferencing is one thing, and you're in the marketing world, and we know how important it is for images, for copy, for messaging. But do you come across a lot of businesses? And when I say businesses, this is the big bid theory. So I'm talking about government agencies out there as well. But aren't there a number of entities out there, both in the public sector and the private sector, who are using video to talk about themselves, talk about their solutions, talk about their services, talk about their people?
That is the case. I think that's something that's been used a whole lot more. And I think that, it's indicative of the fact that nearly 70% of video calling itself and video conferencing takes place on mobile devices. So if you look a little bit further into it, as far as government agencies are concerned, and as far as the public sector, and I think a lot of people are basically this smartphone that they have, it's got the accessibility to do pretty much anything that they want when it comes to video conferencing. So it's something they can do not only when they're remote, because I think we associate that with just staying at home and working, but I think when you're out on the road, or if you're out and you're working on a project, whatever it may be, and certainly that list is almost, it's a very lengthy list when it comes to government agencies, but when you're out in the field, when you're not in your office, the mobile device, you can pretty much take care of anything you need to take care of. And I think that's something that a lot of these different agencies and companies, from big to small, and certainly from public to private, both, that they've certainly adopted just because of the advance we have with the smartphone. I mean, I'm only 30 years old, but I remember a time when, with those Razor phones, I think that was one of the first ones I had, or that Nokia brick phone. That was it was a completely foreign thought that you could have a video conferencing right there on your handheld device. And nowadays it's very easy. I think it's something that's ingrained in every company and every government agency. And Not that there's not concerns with that, certainly, but I think that's something that's given a lot more accessibility to access this, which is why it's grown so much. And now, as we said, about 70% of video calling is taking place on mobile devices.
Yeah, it's really gone through the roof. It's been amazing. And for those of us, yourself there in Connecticut, Will, myself over here in Texas, we've seen it growing, and certainly the pandemic helped to push it along even more so. I snooped Pepperland's website, and I see that you folks work with higher ed and K-12. And so I just want to, at the risk of being redundant, I just want to have everybody understand, is it fair to say that much of what you and I just discussed also applies to the public sector?
It does. I think that especially when it comes to admissions in higher ed, especially, and having that virtual option, I think it's something that is used so much. And I know that out of necessity, a lot of school board meetings and a lot of different, whether it was parent-teacher conference or different committee meetings had to take place over video conferencing. But I think now with a number of different schools, and especially with public, it's starting to become a necessity to not just have video conferencing as part of your search options whenever it comes to people looking for you online or looking at the school district online. I think it's a necessity because with search and Google, I mean, you can pretty much find anything you want. And if you're not ranking well with those services, I guarantee you somebody else is. So I think out of the competitive nature of just Google search engines and all these different options we have whenever it comes to finding different, I would say, key factors when it comes to searching for a school or when it comes to searching for a different thing you need to do as far as moving or a different district, or if you're in the higher ed capacity when it comes to admissions, it's just a necessity to have it. Because if a school has a virtual tour, if they have video conferencing with admissions counselors, that school that has all those options has a significant advantage over those that may not, or those that have it, but it's not really as advanced or as user-friendly as others. So it's definitely taken off there. And I think that's the one area, Bill, that it's a little unknown what this means overall for the future when it comes especially to the public sector with schools, because we all know that with higher ed, it's about admissions and whatnot, but with the public sector, it's a little bit different because you can have those virtual tours and all the bells and whistles of all of that and whatnot, but what is the funding going to allow? How much capacity do you have to really grow the website? Is there an investment into that? Is that built into the budget? And that's an area where there's a little bit of unknown. And so that's something I'll be interested to see in the next couple of years is, has the finance aspect of the public sector really built this into what at least me, I expect to be not just a necessity, but something that if you have it, it gives you a significant advantage over those that do not. So I'll be interested to see what the financial situation is of it moving forward. And I think that's something that from all the different things we looked at with this report, that's one that personally I thought, there's a little unknown here, but I can kind of see it moving in that direction.
I agree with you, and I'm sure many listening to our conversation would agree. And our show's been around for 7 years here, and we've talked about so many different topics related to government purchasing, and certainly money, funding, budgets always do play a role. So it will be interesting to see what's ahead. Before you and I turned on the microphones, I mentioned to you that I do most episodes give our guests an opportunity to kind of look into the crystal ball, look down the road for a particular industry. And so you and I have touched upon some of the future for video conferencing, but is there anything else that, as you speak with analysts or you folks there at Pepperland Marketing have your conversations, is there anything else in terms of video conferencing that you foresee possibly happening in the future? We're not going to hold you to it. We're not going to call you back in 5 years and say, hey, Will, this didn't happen. But what are your thoughts?
Well, that wouldn't be the first time on something like that.
Right.
But that's part of that. That's part of the forecasting a few things. But sure, I think that just from the annual growth rate, you're looking at nearly 10% predicting an annual growth rate for video conferencing in that market, expected of nearly 10% over the next 7 years. And with that, on a global scale, by 2024, web conferencing is expected to be a $20 billion market. And in the next 2 years after that, by 2026, they're expecting it to surpass 50 billion. So we're not just talking about something here in our own backyard, but something that's taken off on a global scale. And I think that one of the things that you can look at and see that that's likely the case is that internet usage overall has been and continues to rise, and that's on a global scale. And so with all of that, I mean, it's a 9% growth from 2018 to 2019 in particular. That's one of the numbers we put on the report. But when you look at what's been happening with the rise of this, and when you see the necessity of it over the past 12 to 18 months, and when you look at I would say overall, it's been pretty positive. When you look at the good reviews of it, I think you're looking at something that is just going to be a massive, massive industry, and already is in a lot of ways. But I think it's going to be one of the next big things out there. And so I think that it's not just here to stay, but I think it's going to be something that a lot of different entities, public, private, government sector, it doesn't matter. I think a lot of different entities are going to latch onto this and use it to do everyday operations.
I agree with you. Past experience in the video industry, video is king. Grab the popcorn, because I think, Will, that you're correct. There will be a lot going on in the coming months, coming years when it comes to video conferencing. I mean, we'll walk down the street, walk through an office building. How many people do you see who are engaged on their phones, engaged on their computers, consuming video content? Will, we have a long-standing tradition here at the show of offering our guests the chance to talk about themselves, talk about their businesses. You and I have mentioned Pepperland Marketing. What do you folks offer? What are your specialties there in Connecticut?
Sure. So we're a full inbound marketing agency working with the full funnel aspect of content strategy, conversion optimization, sales enablement, technical expertise. I think that there's a lot of opportunities, as I mentioned, with Google search a few minutes ago. That's something that we certainly do quite a bit with, and it comes to SEO, search engine optimization, paid media. Pretty much everything in the marketing landscape is when it comes to digital solutions. That's kind of what we're dealing with. And as you mentioned, we do have clients in higher ed and K through 12. We have clients in a number of different industries, but I think that our growth-driven approach is one of the big things that we do, and it's using a full funnel aspect in inbound marketing, which is something that really took off after the I believe it was 2008 housing crisis and everything that went on there. I think inbound marketing really, like video conferencing, maybe on a smaller scale though, really took off as a necessity, and a lot of businesses adopted that approach. So we work with that in a number of different industries, and it's a fun job because, Bill, I'll tell you this: there's no day is ever the same, and I'm sure it's a lot like that with what you see and a number of topics and a number of guests you've had before. But no day is the same, because it's with Google's algorithms and different things going on like that. You think you might have it all figured out, and there's something that shows up, and it's almost kind of like a little bit of a puzzle with SEO and trying to optimize web pages and different things to help your clients succeed and to help people notice them and hopefully bring in more traffic.
Yeah, definitely a dynamic situation. Little doubt about that. Everybody listening to this episode, Pepperland Marketing, interesting, informative website. There's a link. We try to make it easy for everybody. There's a link to Pepperland Marketing, to their website. If you go to the description of the podcast, you can click on that and then head on over and find out more about Pepperland. Well, Will, again, on behalf of our team here at the show for sure, but certainly our audience as well, do appreciate you carving out some time. All the best to you and the team there at Pepperland Marketing.
Bill, thanks so much. I enjoyed the show, and it was great being here, and really appreciate it.
All right, Rick, earlier in the episode, you gave us a quick glimpse at this Crazy Bids. Rick, the mic is yours. Take it away.
All right, so this episode's crazy bid that you can win comes from some of our favorite neighbors over in Canada, more specifically the city of Moncton in the province of New Brunswick. And this bid title is Magnetic Hill Zoo Wild Lights Sound and Light Design Build Project. So basically what I'm taking from this is that the Magnetic Hill Zoo in the city of Moncton is looking for a consultant to help them design their sound and lights for their Winter Lights event for the Magnetic Hill Zoo. basically looking for a audio-visual firm to come in, help them design out what they plan on doing for their winter events, of course. And I'm putting a spotlight on this one, of course, because this falls within my interests of audio-visual work, and I really do love to see whenever people kind of in my field are having government opportunities brought to them. So I'm very glad to kind of give this one a high five, so to speak, but also really excited about the idea of the government reaching out to get some ideas on how to make something like we talk about for video conferencing, how we can add a very exciting visual and audio element to a zoo exhibit here, which seems really fun to me. And of course, I have this idea in my head, if it were me at least, consulting to help out with this exhibit. I mean, of course, you want to do your general, good lights, good audio, maybe some narrated things going on, neat little visual patterns and whatnot. But you are probably doing yourself a disservice if at the end of this exhibit there's not a very flashy colored and loud music at a dance party that the animals participate in. So if you do plan on actually submitting a bid for this particular opportunity, then you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't put in that dance party at the end of it. And that particular idea is the majority of what brought to me this episode's crazy bid that you can win.
Another work of art. Rick, great job on that crazy bids you can win. All right, that's going to do it. As always, we appreciate you for tuning in, sharing, downloading, and following The Big Bid Theory. Thanks for the emails. I appreciate everybody reaching out, communicating with us, and thanks to everybody who's shared ideas for topics and guests in some cases. Thanks for sharing that information. You can email me at bculhane@bidprime.com. If you haven't already, please follow us on Twitter at The Big Bid Theory, and my personal Twitter. You can head over to Twitterland. It's contract_Hunter, contract, that little underline Hunter. You can also, of course, find us on Facebook as well. Powered by Bid Prime, that's an end to this episode. Many thanks to Will Purcell from Pepperland Marketing for sharing his insights on video conferencing. Keep an eye, if you aren't already, keep an eye on that industry. Also, thanks to Rick Jennings and our team of all-stars here at TBBT. This is Bill Culhane. Until next time, go Gunners, Barracudas, Tigers, Bobcats, and Cubs, and we wish you all the best in growing your business.
Powered by Bid Prime, we thank you for tuning in to The Big Bid Theory. From Austin, Texas, the show is produced by Bill Culhane and Jim Ward. Producer and engineer is Rick Jennings. You can find other episodes of the show on platforms such as iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Google Play, Stitcher, among others. As always, thank you for downloading and sharing the podcast.
We're having so much fun.